All right, this is the third and final joint meeting of the Town of Woodbridge Boards of Selectmen and Finance for the purposes of reviewing, operating, and in some cases, capital budgets. Before we get to our first presentation, which is the Woodbridge Board of Education, we have with us tonight Scott Bassett, who's the partner in charge of the audit from McCladrey. And Scott's going to go over the basic findings of the audit. Scott?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Scott Bassett. I'm a partner with McCladrey. We performed the audit for the Town of Woodbridge for the year ended June 30th, 2014. Just the basics of our audit. We are independent of the town. We gave a clean, unmodified opinion on the financial statements of the Town of Woodbridge for the year. In addition to our basic audit of the financial statements, we also do an audit under Yellow Book and federal and state single audit guidelines. The Yellow Book, really, we look for compliance with laws and regulations and things of that nature. And for the federal and state programs, we take a look at compliance with those programs, whether it be financial in nature or just program requirements. There we gave an unqualified, unmodified clean opinion in all aspects of the three audits that we perform within the town. The town received the GFOA certificate of reporting for the 20th year this year, which is very good. What that means is that the statements as presented, in addition to presenting the required statements required by generally accepted accounting principles, the staff goes on and presents a transmittal letter in a statistical section which shows you 10-year trend information. So, it's a nice award to get. It's something that takes a lot of work. In 20 years, it is very good to continue to get that GFOA award. The financial highlights, assets exceeded liabilities for the year by $60,350,000. That was up from $58,596,000 from 2013. That was an increase of $1.7 million. The unassigned fund balance was $4.5 million, or 9.9% of general fund expenditures for the year. Capital assets, net of accumulated depreciation, was approximately $78 million. In total liabilities, including debt, was $31,457,000. Net position was $60,350,000, of which $3,535,000 is unrestricted. The town as a whole increased its net assets by $1,754,000 for the year. That was on the full accrual basis of accounting. For the government statements, the government funds, which include your general fund, your main operating fund, the general fund had a fund balance of $5,930,000, and the unassigned fund balance represents 9.9% of the general fund expenditures. From a debt standpoint, the town has an outstanding band at the end of the year of $7,070,000. I believe that was for the country club and the public works facilities, outstanding. The fund balance on the GAAP basis for the general fund decreased by $120,000. Tax collection rate remains strong at 99.57 during the current year. That's always a benchmark that's taken a look at when you go out to the bond markets. Total revenue on the budgetary basis were $44,744,000, which was $548,000 less than expected, and that was primarily due to less than fees collected in the country club fees associated with country clubs. Expenditures were $45,234,000, which were $562,000 better than expected. There are no significant variances between the budget and actual numbers within the expenditure line items. From the federal and state side, the town received $1,042,000 from the federal government and $2.3 million from the state government. We did not have, during the course of our audit, any significant deficiencies or control findings were noted. Overall, as I say, pretty much every year we come in, there are no audit adjustments that we had to propose. The trial balances given to us are complete and accurate, and always get around to financial reporting. And what that really means, the information that you're receiving on a monthly basis that is prepared by the finance department is accurate, so you can make your decisions on. The internal controls, we don't opine on internal controls, but we certainly look at them, both here at the town side and at the Board of Ed side, and no deficiencies were found there. We received full cooperation from both the town and the Board of Ed, and I would certainly like to answer any questions that you may have.
Scott, what is going to be changing?
Yep, I was going to touch on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's some big changes coming.
Yeah, we have, as you know, the town participates in the statewide municipal retirement system. So next year, there's a GASB 68 that's coming out. GASB 68 basically is you participate in a group pension plan, and we just would disclose that. The state will tell us what to contribute, and the town would contribute that based on that actuarial report. For the year ended June 30, 2015, GASB 68 will take effect for the town of Woodbridge and other communities that participate in the state financial plan. And what happens is the actuaries are going to come in on the state system, and they're going to measure what the pension liability is. They're going to say, here's the pension liability is this much, and then they're going to measure that against what assets are available, and you're going to have a net pension liability. What the state auditors will do then, from that net pension liability, they're going to divide that up to each participant in that plan. So when June 30, 2015 comes, I talked about your assets exceeding your liabilities by $60 million at the end of the year, and $3.5 million are what we call unrestricted. Well, a portion, we don't know how much, but a portion, we're going to record a liability for our portion of that net pension liability. The one thing about that plan within the state of Connecticut, it's pretty well funded, and that's because they pretty much tell you what to contribute each year. So everybody had to contribute, and most communities. So last I heard is that fund was approximately funded at about 82%, which is it's a pretty good funded ratio. But that's 82% of what percent, and then you have a percentage of that number that will come over to your statement of net assets. So not sure what the number would be, but my understanding is the impact won't be too significant, just based on the mechanics of that plan and how it's been contributed to. Now, the odd thing with this GASB 68, which is different from prior years, is you're really measuring now as of June 30th, and so that date is the date that you measure your fair value of your assets. Typically, what actuaries will do is they'll smooth the value of assets over 5 years, so you have gains and losses. They'll just smooth that over 5 years when they take a measurement. Now the value, the accrued liability, and the assets are going to be measured as of June 30, 2015. So it all depends what the market does during the year. So it's going to be a real-time measure. So that's going to be something that auditors struggled with a little bit, because when they tell us what is Woodbridge's percentage, well, we have to go back to the auditors of the state plan and pull that number in and make sure that they performed everything correctly. So that's a major change that's going to impact the town of Woodbridge next year when we talked about the when we implement GASB 68. So that's that I was going to touch on. That was the one standard that's out there that will have an impact. I will tell you this: the GASB went through 66, 67, and 68 were for pension plans. In 2 to 3 years, we'll have the same type of provisions or standards for OPEB plans.
And when these numbers hit, it could be
The OPEB.
Forget Woodbridge. I mean,
Yeah.
some of these communities,
Oh,
I've heard it could be in the billions.
There are a lot of money, like with defined benefit plans across the state. Now, they've already made the calculation this year. They haven't recorded it, but that number is a big number in a lot of communities out there. So the fortunate thing is, I believe, what I've heard is that the state plan is pretty well funded, so that should minimize the impact.
Okay. Any other questions?
Tony win an award this year?
He's on number 20. Okay.
So again, thank you.
Thank
If you
you
have
very
any
much,
questions,
Scott.
if you get through the booklet, just let me know and I'll be happy to answer them. But as I always say, what's in the information, it's a 120-page booklet, but pages 3 through 9 are where you'll find out the financial results. So that's what I would read, and then the details are in the back. Okay? Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Yeah, just to follow up on Andy's comments, I do want to compliment Tony and the finance department. I mean, we get these reports. Tony makes it look so easy. You know, we sit down, we get the budget books, Karen's put them together, but it's really terrific work. So I just want to thank you very much. We certainly appreciate it.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the Woodbridge Board of Education. Could you identify yourself, please?
Guy Stella from Beach Road. If you give us just a minute or so to get up. Take yourself. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that should be fine.
You say right?
Good evening, members of the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, members of the Board of Education, people in the audience, and also good evening, citizens of Woodbridge. We're here to present the Board of Education proposed operating budget for the 2015-16 school year. Now, this past January, I started my 10th year as superintendent. What a wonderful beginning of 10th year here. And in putting this budget together, we followed the same mantra that we used from the very first year. And that's always looking to improve the quality of education in Woodbridge. And secondly, being very concerned for the taxpayer because we're part of the same town. Now, talking about quality, we have a lot to be proud of at Beecher Road School. We were designated last year as an excelling school, the state's top rank. There's a whole formula that goes with that. It measures growth over time in a lot of different areas. We're proud to share that distinction with one of the other BOA schools, and that's Tammany High School. We're a high-performing school. We're a successful school, and that's due to a lot of reasons. There's a strong academic curriculum. We like to say that we do it all at Beecher Road School. There's not one area that we miss. There's an extensive balanced literacy program, and our emphasis is in preparing children for their lives. We're creating a generation of lifetime readers, writers, and thinkers. There's an intense science program, and the results show. Last year's CMT's 5th grade students ranked #1 in our DIRG. That's a group of 20 of the highest performing districts in the state, and #5 among the hundreds of schools in the state that took that exam. We have a comprehensive new math initiative. We're working on success because with our last CMTs, we really hit the ball out of the stadium. But we're working closely with the Tri-State Consortium of high-performing districts in Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York to raise the bar. We're at the forefront of elementary world language study, and our school board and community encourage us to increase that as well. Our kindergarten children start with Spanish in kindergarten, and by the time they leave 6th grade, they take a very intensive, comprehensive exit exam that not only helps us to know what they have learned over the past 7 years, but also prepares them as they continue into middle school and high school with articulation. Woodbridge has always supported and valued education. That's why we have a TAG program, a program for the gifted and talented, and we have a very successful optional program, a multi-age program that attracts many families to Woodbridge. We're state-of-the-art in technology for an elementary school. It wasn't the case 9 or 10 years ago when I came to the board. So I thank the Boards of Selectmen, Finance, and Education, and the citizens of Woodbridge for supporting us with this initiative. Not only do we have the equipment, we have the human resources. Our coordinator of technology, for example, is a key member of the executive board of a statewide computer organization. And he played a major leadership role in organizing a regional conference of over 700 educators from the New England area. And I'm so proud to say that at that conference, several of our teachers presented workshops to standing room only audiences. And they were the only presenters to do multiple workshops. We're proud of the fact that many people come to our school to see what we are doing in technology. We have collaboration with the British Art Museum, with many universities here in Connecticut, with Teachers College, Columbia University, with cultural institutions, and with our sister schools in China and a new sister school in Morocco this past year. Our music program continues to receive top honors. Again, we're the only elementary school that I know of that has a music adjudication where judges come from out of state right to our school to hear our children perform and to give direct feedback. That encourages our children to work harder. Beecher Road School is a living gallery of the visual arts. All you have to do is walk the hallways. And we did a tour with the Board of Education last year with this year. We had it on video also. And you'll see ever-changing displays of children's work. The quality of, you can see the progression of the work from kindergarten to 6th grade. The dramatic arts flourish. Last year we had Peter Pan was performed to standing room only audiences. This year we'll have The Wizard of Oz. There's a unique 43-acre wildlife preserve. That's how I describe it at Beecher Road School. You'll see deer, turkey, all kinds of things there.
I thought he was talking about the
And
kids.
yes, it's used for our children. It's used for our children for recess, for physical education, for nature study. We have a wonderful loop that they use for their part of their track and physical education. It's also a town treasure. It's open to the community and it's used by the community after school and on the weekends. And we're proud of that fact. There's very strong support for the social, emotional, physical, and health aspects of every child. We often talk about physical security and safety at school. We also have to look at the social, emotional development of children. We've learned those lessons just reading the papers and what has happened in other areas. There's a major initiative on differentiated instruction where we're looking at the pathways of individual students. We have a growing number of children at high academic success, but we also have an influx of students at different levels. So we try to work with each one of them. Our parent community supports and is grateful for our before and after school programs that extend into the summer. And it's described often as not only an extended day program, but an extended family program. There's a lot of trust in the program because our own teachers and teaching assistants are the ones who run the program and care for our children. And we have award-winning communications. And to demonstrate that, we have 5 awards from CABE, the Connecticut Association of School Boards, for several of our publications. So that's the quality part. Let's go to the other part of the mantra. How do we try? We try hard to save money for the taxpayers. Let's look at several examples. Here's what we describe as a staffing grid. Any good organization, educational organization, should have one. It tells us where our teachers are in the experience spectrum. And we have 73.5 certified teachers. It also shows the number of degrees that teachers have. This has an educational purpose because you don't want all teachers to leave and retire the same year. If you go through the anecdotal records in the 1980s, we had over 15 teachers leaving in the same year. That could wreak havoc to a school system as far as the culture of it and the philosophy that's been built up. It also could be a cost factor because the new teachers who came in at that time are part of a bubble that has been formed, a bubble of people near retirement. So if you take it as an example, we've analyzed our staffing grid, and we've worked closely with our Board of Education Finance Committee too, starting years back. And if you look at this one for 207, 208, that's my first year as a full year as a superintendent. You would see that we have about 11% of our staff with 5 or less years experience. Remember, it's always ideal to have a good distribution. You always want new people coming in to develop them over time. But if you look at the bottom, there's 36.5% who are starting to approach retirement. So that's something to watch. So with the support of our Finance Committee and the Board of Education, we moved towards an early retirement incentive. The idea was to address that bubble and to honor teachers at the same time. So that was 36.5%. Now watch what happened several years after implementing the early retirement initiative. Oh my goodness. So Dr. Stella, that bubble has increased to 50%. Looks like you're going the wrong way. Well, not so, because if you look, if we did nothing, if we were not aggressively proactive, we would have had a bubble of 60% of teachers near retirement or ready for retirement, and 0 coming into it. So this initiative has saved the taxpayer money. How? Well, look at 2009. We saved almost 7,000. Then it went to 45,000, 54, 131, up to 319,000. It's a program that balances recognition for the wonderful work our teachers have given over decades, committed to the school, that continuity and that commitment to the school, while at the same time offering a financial benefit to the taxpayers. We could demonstrate that there was a total savings of over $1 million during that time. Now, that's not $1 million in our pocket or the bank. We're ready for the budget. It means that our budget, with everything else being equal, would have been $1 million more. Let's take a look at heating costs. We're so proud and so grateful for the collaborative relationship we have with the town. We work so well together. And we worked very quickly to convert to natural gas. That was a real team effort. Look at the savings. Our projected account for next year is $70,000. Just a few years ago, 2013, it was $90,000. That's a savings of $20,000 or 23% in just a few years. Another area where we look to save was in health insurance. Woodbridge is below state average in premiums, and that's a good thing. But it wasn't achieved by accident. It was through working with the town, collaborating with our insurance agent, of course, but also with our bargaining units. Because, as one example, if you look at 2012, we're nearly 10% below state average. That's because of the wonderful collaboration with our teachers union, who worked with us to get a win-win situation that was good for teachers, but also we all had the attitude and approached it, and the union approached it, is that we're part of the town too. So the savings were very, very good thanks to their cooperation. And you look at the other years too, and you see the savings that are there. Now let's switch back to education. Dr. Dadgett, a well-known name nationally and internationally, had this quote that kind of impressed me as far as the direction that we're going in. This is something that we all sense. We all know that there's exponential pace of change around us, that we're preparing our children for a world that's going to be far different from the world we grew up in, and that there's an urgency in transforming education. This budget will help us in our efforts to continue that transformation. Yes, there are challenges in putting a budget together during tough economic times when we're trying to watch out, harder than crossing the precipice at times. So what were some of those challenges? Well, one, as we mentioned, transforming our school to prepare children for their future, not our past. And the technology initiative is one of the examples. The work in the arts, the work in all the areas, in fact. The state, you may be tired of hearing this, the constant state mandates at breakneck pace. They don't disappear. We've mentioned some of them last year. There's the required services and interventions, the new computerized state assessments, and as of course the evaluations of the core curriculum. This is a good challenge, the building upgrade. We're really immersed in the work and making lots of decisions on that, but we thank the taxpayers of Woodbridge for that. And the rapidly evolving technology driven by globalization is really changing the way we're approaching education. The increasing rather than increasing enrollment, and there's a definite pattern that we'll demonstrate in a short while. Were there any surprises? Yes, there were some surprises, and it's mixed news. When we put the budget together, there was less volatility in the insurance cost. We're coming in at 7%, that's after working with the town and meeting with our agent. That could change because of the volatility of insurance, but that's where our figures were. We were pleased with the dramatic savings in heating costs. And a good thing, but a challenge, is the increased number of students. And we're getting students from other districts, from other states, and from other countries. Some are coming in very, very well prepared and very advanced. And some are coming in not so well prepared, and we have to meet their needs also. And they're coming in at different grade levels, including 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So with some of the students, it's catch-up. As always, there's a volatility of special education cost. As we said, we always come to you if there are any unexpected savings and if there are any unexpected costs also. The building upgrade, there's been a great deal of planning. It's a great thing for the future. But there's also the cost of maintaining new building systems. The equipment that's being in is very sophisticated, and we'll talk a little more about that as we go along. There was the cost of the new website. Mid-year, our website vendor decided to leave the business, and so we aggressively went through a vetting process and a bidding process, and we were able to secure a very robust vendor that's going to give us opportunity to do even more expanded kinds of communication. And I invite all of you to visit our new website, which we're in the process of building, to see the varieties of information that is available for you in the community. And a big surprise has been, we knew the savings, but really taking a good look at it, and prompted by our finance committee, the savings exceeded our expectations. As always, our budget starts at zero. Every dollar has a name. We know where it's going. We know why we're spending it. And as we always say, we try to get $1.10 or $1.50 out of every dollar. The budget process starts with a review of staffing needs. Teachers and department heads submit requests. There are lots of, it would be nice to have, we wish we could have this. Then there's the necessary, and there's the valuable. The important criteria, however, is how does the request support the mission, the educational mission? The requests are reviewed by administrators and business managers and pared down where they can. The business manager, Al Pulo, and I personally together have scrubbed every single account after all these reviews and so on, nearly 300 accounts. Over half of all accounts had no increases or went down. And at the district level, the buck stops with me, and I do the final review. And again, I look towards what will improve the quality of education, support our mission, and how can we be fair to the taxpayer. And the Board of Ed plays a vital role as being a reviewer and an approver of anything that we submit. I could say that this budget supports our mission. It allows us to meet the Board of Education policy guidelines, and that the board has charged us with doing. Now, we don't have the lowest class sizes in the state. We have reasonable class sizes. Larger than some neighboring districts, but again, reasonable. We continue to develop and have the resources with this budget to develop and implement updated curricula. There's a focus on challenging all students, including our advanced, but all students. And there's a movement towards a more personalized, differentiating teaching learning style. At the next Board of Education meeting, we're going to give an update on what what we and the staff are doing with differentiation. It addresses academic, social, emotional, physical development of every student. And every good learning organization, this key quality is the knowledge building that takes place. We have a superior staff, but there's embedded, powerful, professional, ongoing learning that takes place at all times, during the school day, after school, during the summer months, and the staff is very committed to that. All special education mandates are met, and all contractual obligations are met with this budget. We have a wonderful faculty and staff and administrative team. So this budget provides the certified and support staff to get the job done. Would we like additional staff? Yes. But we didn't ask for any additional staff. We may be coming back to you with our increasing population and our increasing needs, but this year we are not asking for any new certified staff. We asked for a slight increase as far as hours for one teaching assistant who is working with our 2 psychologists and our part-time social worker, working with a small but growing needs of children who have some significant social and emotional issues. We're asking for an additional part-time cafeteria aide. Why? Because we have 800 children in our cafeteria. And that number has grown over the years, and we want to take good care of them. We want to continually enhance our balanced literacy model, which is really the stem of the umbrella that opens to the multiple literacies that children will be experiencing more and more as they go through the grades. We want to continue support for our mathematics model, additional funding for our website that I mentioned, and it provides all the needed materials that we need to get the job done. That means instructional materials, office materials, custodial, musical, the arts, all the materials that we need. What's the bottom line? There's a 3.82% increase. That's almost $500,000. Now, what drives that $500,000 increase? That's an important question. This slide, I think, is self-explanatory. Yes, 88% of the increase comes from contractual obligations for salaries and benefits. Let's take a closer look at some of the budget areas that might catch us by surprise there. For example, there's 11.2% increase with teaching assistants. And where did that come from? Well, we're trying to correct what already exists. And for example, you're aware of the fact that at the beginning of the year, again, we had an increase of kindergarten students. When we had done the budget last year, it looked like our first grade would burst at the seams, and we went from 6 to 7 first grade classes. But those numbers dropped a little bit towards the end of the year, and our kindergartens increased. So we reassigned a first grade teacher to kindergarten, and we needed a teaching assistant. And we thank the Board of Ed and the town for supporting that. So that teaching assistant became part of our actual budget, but not our approved budget. So that's what we're trying to correct. And there's also the dollars for those few additional hours for that teaching assistant that will work with our children with emotional social needs. There was an increase in other salaries, and that's for the new cafeteria aide, plus contractual increases for cafeteria aides, nurses, clerk, and lifeguards. If you look down further, well, before we get there, $438,000, that's the lion's share of the proposed increase, and that's for contractual obligations, salaries, and benefits. Why the $87,000 increase in services, property services, professional services? Well, with property services, we had the new HVAC system is being installed, and the microturbine. It's very sophisticated material. So the wise thing to do is to have and a need for an outside maintenance contract. It's very sophisticated equipment. We want to get a long lifetime out of it, so that was a cost. And then for purchase services, again, the website, also increases in liability insurance, workman's comp, an additional intern. Really not an additional intern because we had cut the intern trying to come in at a lower budget last year, but we really had the need for it, for that intern. On the positive side, we're reaping the benefits of the natural gas conversion, and you can see by the decrease in that account. I guess we're flaunting it here, but 2008, 2009, there's $174,000 spent on heating. Our projection is $70,000. That's $105,000 over 7 years, 150% savings. 88% of the proposed increase is for contractual obligations, and due to increased enrollment, a minimal increase in non-certified staff. The remaining $60,000 is for all other accounts. Let's take a look at our class breakout. We have 2014, 15, 15, 16. We had 796 in the building last year. That's the October 1st count. And we project 816, not counting outplacements, for next year, an increase of 20. Teacher increase, 0. By the way, we're thankful to the Board of Ed and the town for allowing us to increase the number of classes when we needed to do that. So we're holding the number of teachers. The average class size is within board guidelines, 14, 15. You can see K-3 is 18. The board guidelines are 19 or less. 4-6 is 20. Coming year, we're within that range. 6th grade we'll watch closely, but we're 1 over in some classes, and that we're allowed to do. I think it's important to take a look at the trends in enrollment. It tells a story, and this slide itself tells a story. ...2006 was my first full year. I came in January, but the 792 is the October 1st count. Now, I'd like to mention something that's not on the screen. The high point at Beecher Road School, if I'm correct, was about 2000. Year 2000, there were about over 1,000 students at that time. There was a decline in enrollment from that year. Every year from 2000 up to 2006, there was a decline in enrollment. So 2006 to 2007, it was flat. Then 2008, we went down to 758. But something caught our attention. It was higher than the projected drop in enrollment. And the following year, it went down to 733. But that number was far higher than the projected number, which would have put us under 700 and into the 600s. Then there was that turn, and that's a definite pattern of increase. And there's no reason to think that it won't continue. Woodbridge is a very attractive town. We have a wonderful school, and we try to interview all of our families coming in, and that's the message we get from them also. Our teachers work extra hard, our administrators work hard, and they're always trying to do a better job too, and never satisfied. Now, if we compare, we went back and said, okay, let's try to find a year where the enrollment was close. The closest we could come was the year 2006-07, and that was my first full year as superintendent. We had 792. Our projection is for 816. Now, those of you who were on the boards at that time will remember that 2006, 2007, that was the year that we had the below zero cut. We really trimmed staff. So you're looking at the numbers there represent a trimmed staff at Beecher Road School. And some serious cutting. But if you compare it with the 2015-16, you see for 9 years we have held staff to what's necessary to do the job. In spite of 24 more students, our staff has been reduced in the current year projections by 3 positions. Now let's take a look at who are our staff members. First of all, I like to say we have a winning team because we're recognized as a high-performing school. We're a successful school. Families are coming to Woodbridge for the school system against the trends in Connecticut and many neighboring districts. So what makes this possible? We have 5 wonderful administrators. Well, I'm counting our principal and our assistant principal. Remember, the size of Beecher Road School is twice the size of the average Connecticut elementary school. So we have those 2 administrators. We definitely need a special education administrator who's doing a fantastic job, as is our business manager, who manages not only a large budget, but also works with facilities and cafeteria and operations. We have 73.5 certified teachers, 42 classroom teachers. And you might say, whoa, there's a lot of other teachers. Yeah, because it's similar to the medical model. Any one of us who's been in the hospital, has a family member in the hospital, knows that we're surrounded by doctors. There's the internist, there's the surgeon, there's the anesthesiologist, there's the dermatologist, the ophthalmologist, the psychologist. There's a whole team that looks at the patient, looks at it. The same thing in schooling. There's a whole team that works with our students on all different levels, with all different types of jobs. That's the type of educational model that we have and that we need. For example, the arts are so important at Beecher Road School. Well, we have 1.5 art teacher. That's not a lot. Music, 2.5. One is an instrumental, focuses on instrumental. One does a lot of focus on choral, and the music is with all the 3 teachers. PE and health are 2 distinct areas. They're mandated and they're very important for our children. As I say, Beecher Road School does it all. They're wonderful programs. We have 3 teachers. 2 world language teachers for 800 children. Not a lot when you put an emphasis on world language. Language, arts, and ELL, there's 4. But one of those 4 works with children, the majority of time with children who have a first language other than English. That's a mandated program. And we have an international, we're so happy, we have such a healthy thing, we have an international flavor at our school. So we have a full-time person working with that. And the other 3 language specialists work with over 250 children each on many mandated programs with advanced students and all kinds, with teachers and with direct instruction. Mathematics, I told you we have a major initiative. There are 2 math specialists, 800 student population. One focuses on primary, the other on the upper grades. We have a library media team of 4. We combine them into a team and we call them a team like no other. This team is a catalyst for the innovation, the creativity that drives the philosophy of Beecher Road School, that helps technology integrate into all aspects of the curriculum as a way, not as a tool, not as an end, but as a tool in helping to accelerate learning and doing things that can't be done without it. Science, we have 1 teacher, and again, thank you for the science laboratory. Special education, a wonderful department. 2 of those 9 teachers are speech pathologists. We have 2 who work with children with very significant disabilities, and we're so proud to be able to say that we were able to meet the needs of those children within our own neighborhood school. And the other teachers work, and they're stretched. Our needs, they work, they have mandated programs, children with IEPs that have to be serviced. They're doing a spectacular job. Pupil services, we have 2 psychologists and a social worker. And I can't overstate the need for that area of development, the social needs of our children, the emotional needs. So if we go down to our teaching assistants are the glue of the school. In 101 different ways, they help to support our educational program and our children. Our teaching assistants provide direct help for our students instructionally. They do a variety of things. Many of our special education teaching assistants work one-on-one on mandated programs with children. They work in the library media center. We have a teaching assistant in each of our kindergarten classes. That's a big attraction and a very important part of our primary program. So with the staff, there are no staff changes. And again, with our growing population and with the increasing needs at the school, we could be asking for more. We may be coming back next year, but we're not asking for any this year. There's a slight increase in the number of teaching assistants. That's a 0.5. And there's a part-time position in the cafeteria. If you look at our budget history, it demonstrates the fact that we have been concerned about our taxpayers. 4 out of the past 6 budgets have been below 2%. And 2014, because of the cooperation of our teachers union and some other aspects of the budget, we were able to come in at 0. 2011, close to 0. It's hard to keep coming back with budgets below 0 each year with growing needs at the school. But we've done it. It's slightly higher than the past this year, but we have tried to demonstrate what the reasons for that are. This is self-explanatory. Where does the money go? Here's a little quiz. Which 2 areas don't even register? Register at 0. Matt, you're right. Heating, got it right. Heating and furniture and equipment. Very happy with the heating savings, and we make things last. Of course, you have the 2 large areas, and that's salaries and benefits. But that's not a surprise because an educational organization is labor intensive. A good educational system puts highly qualified people in front of children, and that's what we do at Beecher Road School. It's a little cold this time of the year, but let's take a trip to Finland. Why Finland? Because Finland is one of the top 3 countries in the world over the past decade or more that have been scoring either number 1 or in the top as far as international educational exams. And we have a visiting professor from Finland at Harvard University. We had a chance to hear some of his presentations, read some of his books, and also speak with him. Hear some questions, have some questions answered. And we said, well, how does Finland do so well in these exams? He said, we don't know. And he said, we don't care because we don't pay a lot of attention to it. What we do pay attention to is picking good candidates as teachers and training them well. In fact, he said it's harder to become a teacher, no offense to anyone, harder to become a teacher in Finland than it is a doctor or a lawyer. And then once they graduate, we make sure they have the proper mentorship, ongoing professional learning, and equity as far as financing whatever their needs are. And we asked about, so what else did he say about teaching? That's Dr. Pasi Sahlberg. He's written quite a few books. Teaching is not rocket science. It's harder. It's harder. What did he say about accountability and evaluation? That accountability is what's left when you subtract responsibility. So responsibility was a big thing that he stressed. He didn't dismiss accountability, but he stressed responsibility. So let's take a trip to another part of the world to hear another educator. Let's go to the United States. Let's get closer to home, Connecticut. And let's go to the heartland of Connecticut. Woodbridge. And here, when an educated, not as famous as this one, has to say it. We take the responsibility for the education of our children very seriously. And we promise you this, we will not let our children, you, or the town down. We will take good care of our children. But this we ask of you. Please continue to enhance the quality of education at Beecher Road School as you have always done. Please support our children. Please trust your teachers and school leaders. They're doing an outstanding job, and they take their responsibility very seriously. I want to personally thank the members of our Board of Education, many of whom are with us here tonight. What a powerful group of people, what a powerful team, so supportive of education, asking the right questions, prompting us in the right direction, and giving so generously of their time and their talents. It shows in the way we do our planning, the way we do our finances, every aspect of how we approach education. So if you give us just a couple of minutes, we'll be ready to answer any questions that you might have.
Dr. Stoll, thank you very much for your informative presentation as usual. Any questions, anybody?
Well, we're very little we can negotiate on.
It's a showstopper, Dr. Stoll.
So, an excellent presentation.
Thank you very good. Thank you for all your support. I appreciate it.
Okay. Next is the Police Commission. No? You want to come up? Thank you, sir. Yeah, no. The police is tab 1210.
It's our PowerPoint.
You don't need to be. PowerPoint. We're going to Hawaii.
My IT person.
Okay. Go right to the overtime.
Okay, Ray, why don't you highlight the, obviously, as we always do, the items of significance. There's a lot of small increases, but yeah, obviously, overtime, you've given us a, why don't you run through that to start with? That's always an issue.
Well, I mean, when we put it through, when we sat down with our board, we decided that overtime was the major factor in our budget. And then I started with about 6 PowerPoint slides, and it came down to 3. But I think what I'm going to try to do is just kind of educate you a little bit. Maybe you know how the overtime works at the police department, and maybe you don't. Hopefully this will help you. Because I know last year was a big issue, how it's escalating, and we're just trying to explain it a little bit better, so you have a better understanding. The first slide, basically, would be the overtime of police officers on our operational side of the police department. These are directly related to needs. Accidents that occur, robberies that occur, medicals that the officers respond to can affect it. Storm-related issues, case investigations. And the most important thing is to understand, I mean, most of the time we're out there with 2 officers, all right? So we have to provide coverage before these incidents happen, during these incidents, and after they occur. The manpower shortage issue is caused by workman's comp injuries. Right now, we have 2 officers that are out on workman's comp, and positions not filled. That would be officers that are in the academy, and officers that have to teach those officers when they actually get out of the academy and they're on the road. So it kind of gives us a shortage. We have uncontrollable book-offs from officers, last minute due to sickness and family emergencies. And then we have what we can control that you haven't controlled in the past is that we get DWI grants come down from the state, where the state will pay 75% of the salary of an officer, and the town pays the 25%. We can control that, and that's the operational side of the overtime that we project. The other side is the public works or special events. I mean, and actually before I sat down and started this, I did a little survey with about 6 or 7 of the area departments, and 3 issues came up. Town overtime, shortage overtime, and investigative overtime. Most departments, that's what they're dealing with. Those are the 3 consistent areas that we generate overtime. Now, on the town side, we have public works. Since 2011, 2012, we have an open hole policy that has generated a little bit more overtime than we have had in the past. All right, but that's based on each year whether the town is going to be paving the roads, whether they're going to be doing the curb replacement, catch basins, tree work that's done within the town. That could stem from costing us $10,000 in one year to $2,000 in a year, but I have no control over that. The only control that we've tried through the policy of the open hole is the fact that coming out of the chief's office, when Public Works requests an overtime position or an officer, we can determine whether that officer is actually going to be needed or not, whether it can be utilized by a flagman or even by Public Works personnel. And that could save the town, quite a bit of money. And then the other areas are special events that we have in town. We've had parades in the past. We have our summer concerts all through the month of July. Veterans Day, we have a commitment that we've made to the town that we provide an honor guard. That's 5 officers at each one of those events, Veterans Day and Memorial Day. Elections, we found that, we used to have just 1 officer at the elections, and it turned out that now that we have, 2 or 3. Town meetings, some of the town meetings can get a little contentious, and we've had requests to have officers there. You all know that, a couple of years ago, during Halloween, we had the truck or treat. We have to provide officers for that. The safety of the kids, walking, back and forth across the roads. And then in past years, we've had issues, and this is one prime example, when the town decides to have something like a carnival. You have to have police officers there. So those are the areas that have generated that. And then it's just basically a simple graph. This is on a yearly basis of where the overtime is associated from. From shortages is obviously caused by, like I said, it's caused by, we are short at this time, by officers booking off, and it's just covering those shifts when investigations are needed, or we have the lack of a minimum manpower of 2. And then investigations. We have no control over investigations. We have no control over the bank robberies. Last year we had 3. They're very man-intensive, time-intensive, and just takes a lot of man-hours and a lot of time-consuming. And then the town overtime, which is basically the least portion of our overtime. But, I hope that kind of gives you a little idea of where all the overtime is coming from with the department.
Before we go off overtime, Ray, in this, the bar graph, I assume the number on the left is dollars?
Left is dollars.
So this is the breakdown of last year, or?
Correct. This is, it's like town overtime right now. I couldn't tell you what the, I couldn't even get a projection of overtime because I don't know how much they're gonna be doing in the next fiscal year. I actually broke down one payday, or one pay period, and that's what I based this on. That particular pay period had no overtime for the town. All right? There was no overtime. And then you take another pay period and you could have, $4,000 or $5,000 worth of overtime, depending on what event is taking place. What did stay consistent, I can tell you that investigations and shortages stay pretty much consistent throughout the year, pay period to pay period, unless we have a major event. And the chief and I were just going over today that an event like the incident that occurred off of East Rock, it came in as a missing persons. It turned out to be a death investigation. It was 143 hours of overtime that was associated to that before the investigation was conducted after 3 days. It's just, investigations like that are very time consuming. You have no control over that. That same month we had 2 suicides. There's a lot of, it's like the case investigations are very intense. Though, and some of those cases go on for months and months, so that overtime associated with that particular event could, run in from month to month. It's not necessarily just generated out of that one night. It's kind of like that, that little cliche a lot of us say, it's just, we're not, this is not CSI. We don't do our investigations in that hour and it's all done. The bank robberies, that we had the overtime associated with that. We have the bank robbery, they do the investigation, they get suspects. We had to have 4 officers go down to South Carolina and pick up 2 suspects. That's time consuming, but that's all that other cliche is, it's a cost of doing business, especially in that line item that we have on the department.
So, sorry about this cold, but on
No.
the overtime area that we could look at, it's not the major one though, is the open hole policy. I assume that's for town as well as private entities, even though if it's a private entity, they reimburse us, but ultimately it's still an overtime number,
Yeah,
right? And there was a time when I thought we thought that the policy required a police officer, but I think we had talked about this, that the chief has discretion.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something that you're looking at to see if there are ways to?
We've used this discretion on that. And if you look at the second page again, with Public Works and Special Events, the special events probably takes up almost half of that overtime between the work that they do on the road and the special events. So it's about half, maybe a little bit more with the special events. So we have curbed the open hole policy. I mean, we put them where we think we definitely need them, and then we don't have them where, a dead-end street or something like that, where they used to do it, but they don't do it anymore.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, just ask.
Okay, on the Halloween and truck or treat event, Halloween and truck or treat event, how many officers do that? And is it somewhat related to the Pease Road thing and all that? Not Pease,
Well,
wherever
it
it
is.
is. What's that road? Where there's a million kids.
Penny Lane,
Penny Lane.
Penny Lane, yes, it's
Oh,
in my ears.
since-
4 or 5.
For
4 or
like-
5 officers on Penny Lane.
Up there,
Yeah.
and the residents don't contribute to that?
No, they do not.
Okay, all right.
Public
And-
safety.
It's public safety, okay, and there's no more fire department carnival that I know of, correct?
No, I was just using that as an example.
Okay.
Even the fire department was, it would be something where, something like that would come up. An operation plan has to be put together. And that comes from the chief's office. So he has the discretion of how many officers would be utilized at. But it's mostly, it's boilerplate, where you would need it. I mean, for the truck or treat, we only have 1 officer over there for the safety of the people crossing the street late at night.
I am glad to hear, by the way, about elections, that you have 2 officers.
3.
Because in the past, it
3.
has been 3.
National
have
election, it
3
would be
officers.
3.
Okay, good. 'cause
For 14 hours.
It's a nightmare sometimes, depending
Yeah.
on whether it's a referendum or
It's
not,
14 hours
obviously.
for the day.
Right, okay, thanks.
I mean, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, we have to hire 5 officers. We hire 5 officers that run our honor guard. That's a minimum of 4 hours each. I mean, and we try to work it out so it doesn't cost the town. We're constantly looking at the overtime issues, whether, the officer is asked to work at a private duty job, or not a private duty, an overtime job with Public Works. We look at where it's gonna be located. Obviously, if it's gonna be located at, intersecting a state road, we won't want an officer there. But like the chief said, if it's intersecting, if it's two town roads intersecting, or on a cul-de-sac or something like that, they could do it with their manpower or hire a private contractor, which doesn't come out of our budget. And it doesn't reflect.
What are the hours that you provide an officer at Beecher Road School right now?
8 hours a day.
8 hours a day.
And it starts when and ends when?
He's there at 8.
8.
Until
So,
He's 8 to 4.
8 to... And what would it take to extend that to 6? I know that's something to 6 p.m. That's something that they were interested in
It would
doing.
probably cost, if it was the DARE officer, if he can do it, it would just be an additional 2 hours of overtime.
Yeah.
If he could not do the 2 hours of overtime, it would cost a minimum of 4 hours if we had to hire another police officer, because there's a 4-hour minimum.
So is it possible, though, to make that part of someone else's shift to cover that last 2 hours?
We don't have the manpower to do that.
Right now, for the most part, about 75% of the time, we're running with 2 people. 2 officers. We have 2 officers tonight. And then we have a sergeant that comes in at 6 o'clock. He works a 6 to 2 shift, just so we have that supervision during that period. But we had a major accident a couple of weeks ago where the accident took up the 2 officers that were on the road. We actually had 2 sergeants on the road that had to actually step into an officer's position. Both of those, the people from the accident had to be transported to the hospital and watched. So that means we have to, this is like before, after, and during, we have to hire 2 officers to come in and cover the shift so they can, attend medicals and things like that. So it's very manpower intensive to cover the shifts.
Were you done? Yeah. So I'm just trying to understand the numbers. The 100% increase in investigative services for overtime, I'm looking at
The next one down.
the actual
Correct.
breakdown. The dollars, though, is from $5,000 to $10,000.
Yeah,
Right.
and this is an overtime account as well.
Right, okay. The bigger dollar increment, even though the percentage is smaller, is in the actual overtime for police officers. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I understood that correctly. And my real question is, a book, first of all, an open hole, do we literally mean an open hole? What's an open hole policy?
It's whenever any job.
I mean, am I the only one who doesn't know what that is? Yeah, we don't know what that means.
The open hole policy actually generated, not necessarily for Public Works' use, it came from the officers in their union, where they said that, hey, look, we have all these private companies out there, and this is private duty, this has got nothing to do with
Right.
overtime. They said, and this is something that they acquired from other towns, where they said, well, if UI goes down and they have to be alongside the road for any period of time, they have to have a police officer there. All right? And that's under the chief's discretion. Well, the open hole policy says that if they're down there, the officer drives by, sees it, you have to have we can close the jobs right down. We can close them right down.
Yes.
So it gives them more of an opportunity for the overtime, and that they will pick them. Because the bottom line is that the officer, having an open hole policy, the officer has first preference. They can't go to a flag company. They can't go somewhere else. They can't have their own men out there directing traffic. They have to have a Woodbridge police officer in the town of Woodbridge directing traffic.
Okay, well, the real question I had, I think I understood that. The real question I have is in the book-offs.
Mm-hmm.
Why does that result in overtime? It looks like it's a substitution rather than an addition.
Because if there's only one officer working, we have to replace the officer that booked off.
But aren't there always 2 officers working?
Well, if one of them books off, there's only one working.
So we have to bring it back up
They
to 2.
call in somebody else.
No, they call them, so then you're still only paying 2 people, aren't you? Or you're paying the third, is the
pay
third
sick
taking
time.
sick time?
You pay
Oh,
someone
you're
to
paying
take-
the sick time,
Right.
okay, all right,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, gotcha.
Typically,
I understand.
historically, every year, our budget is okay because the 2 officers that we have out on workers' comp the town is reimbursed by workers' comp.
Right.
And retirements, also, we don't hire right away. So we have several months of that officer's salary not going anywhere, and it goes back into the salary account. So typically, we've been using that at the end of the year.
So that's, oftentimes it's a judgment call at the Board of Finance typically, where how much of that do you think you want to take a risk on having funds available in the regular police officer's salary line due to those two, mainly those two reasons, and how much you want to offset them overtime, and that's usually a discussion.
Thank you.
That takes place.
No, that helps understand. Thank you.
During half of this budget year, we were down 4 officers. The 2 that are in workman's comp and 2 officers that were in the academy and had to work. They had to do 400 hours of FTO when they came back
I
here.
remember when you talked about that.
But the good news, okay, part of the good news is you get reimbursed for workman's comp.
Yes.
Those 2 guys.
Exactly.
The bad news is,
We're down 2 guys.
you're down 2 guys, and that creates real problems for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Overtime. Sure.
It's lots of overtime, and,
Yes.
you know, and your ability to put people on the street and people where you need them.
Exactly.
And some of these situations you've been dealing with for years.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not uncommon. It's all of the departments. It's just the way it is. Struggling.
Any other questions? Anything else you want to add on anything else, Ray? I think
No, I mean,
Self-explanatory.
Ms. Jacobs, she brought up I thought the investigative services and overtime and training. I'd highlighted a few. Uniform allowances, it's high because, I mean, you also have to understand this budget year, we have 6 people that can retire. So that's just, well, actually 5, but it's going to be 6 going into July.
I'm sorry, did you say 6 people were gonna retire?
Can,
Oh, can
eligible, have 25 years now. But that's,
Okay, all set?
great.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Who's up next, Warren? Warren.
Who's plowing snow?
So I count Andy, Susan, Ellen, all sick, right?
I know. It's like, and where am I sitting?
You're doomed.
Me too.
Right, you're doomed also.
You guys are all what?
We're all sick, 3 of us. We're sitting over here hacking and snorting.
Six-sided table.
We're Sandy and poor Tony.
Come over here to the bright side. We're happy. David and
Stay
I
away.
are parents.
How are you, Warren?
Good evening.
How'd you survive the storm?
Not bad. Everybody's a little tired.
The roads look good, though.
How come we're doing, oh.
We've had a few compliments, Warren, calls and emails about what a great job you all did. So,
That's good.
Thank you.
Glad to hear that.
It's great.
And my mailbox is intact.
Wait, winter's not over.
Thank you very much.
You guys still going out or are you done with this storm?
Well, we're doing sightline cleanup now,
Okay.
but tomorrow night, again.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
Thursday again, let's start.
More snow.
That's minor, we're talking about more for Sunday,
Right.
into Monday.
Sunday.
Sunday night into Monday.
We're in the
It's
cycle.
winter.
You know, this is.
It's New England.
All I can tell you is I drove to work today in New Haven, drive through Woodbridge, it's like, no, I go under the bridge to New Haven, it's like it's a different world in terms of the
Took me
roads.
35
Yeah,
minutes
well.
to get here.
Different
from
world.
New Haven, which is a 15-minute drive.
So thank you.
It's ridiculous.
Okay, let's start with Public Works. Any highlights you want to mention us, Warren? It's
Well, there's
about a
been,
10% increase, so there's got to be something in there.
yeah, there's, a lot of it was because of proposed deep regulation changes. And it doesn't look like a lot of those changes are gonna happen, but the final draft has not been submitted, so we have to wait and see what might be on the tail end of those. So right now, was in 53,610 line item, there was a $40,000 increase in that line item because of potential leaf cleanup that doesn't appear to be happening.
Okay, so this might change then, these numbers.
Right, those numbers would be lowered.
So you'll work with Tony on that.
Yeah.
There are some other changes. The 55-130 maintenance supplies, that's what the mechanics use for something that's not designated as a piece of equipment. There's consistent overages and requests, so that line item went up a little bit. Materials, the salts, there's changes there because the cost on those fluctuates, but again, I found out today that a lot of the municipalities are having delivery problems. And they have quantities on order, but they're not receiving the orders. And I had about 20 municipalities get on listserv and having the same issue. We have material pending that hasn't been delivered, so we're confronted with the same issue.
How much material do you have? For how many storms, of what caliber?
We
would
have
you say?
enough probably for the next storm, and depending on the type of storm, obviously, the usage.
Right.
But I've restricted the usage of materials because normally we go out and post street to try to get the roads down to black pavement. We're not doing that because I have to conserve for pedestrian parking lots and certain critical hills and, intersections. So we're being conservative with the materials until we get our supplies replenished.
Any idea what the problem is?
It happened last year. Nobody seems to know. People are contacting the state to find out what's going on. This time of year, you don't want to overstock material. We replenished in hopes that, we'd have enough to endure the rest of the season, given the time of year and everything. But again, when you get storms of magnitude and the longevity of the storm, but we cut out putting material, because if we can scrape down to bare pavement, we generally only apply where it's critical, like coming to a stop sign, things like that. So materials are being conserved. We're not overusing material, but because of the longevity of the storm, you have to keep reapplying. And therefore, you're consuming additional materials. When you have like the town buildings and people are constantly walking back and forth in the parking lot, you don't want slip fall issues. So we're using materials in those areas, and product will be consumed. But in anticipation, we're not totally out. I have, we use a treated and untreated salt. I have a supply of both of those, and I have a sand salt mix. But those are limited by, let's say, a level of comfort, given we still have another month or more of winter to go. So if it seems to be more of a delivery problem than because I guess down in the terminal, the supplies are there, but we don't know. The terminal is saying, well, have somebody on site on Saturday, we'll deliver on Saturday. There was some municipalities looking for 300-400 tons to be delivered in a day. They get one load. So you're paying a man and having the loader on standby, and you're not getting the material delivered. So it's on their end. I don't know what the issues are. The last storm, when I called them that morning and said, hey, we're dangerously low, you could witness and attest to that. We had a meeting and the vehicles were pulling in and out of the driveway. So I don't know what's to be said about that. But there is price fluctuations on those products, and obviously I'm not increasing the tonnages or anything for next year, but the cost associated with that, there's increases in the cost in those quantities. And that's pretty much it on Public Works where the changes occurred in the budget. I'm sorry, there's also new items. I forgot the last page here. Because of the new Public Works building, there are products that we're going to be using that we don't have a reference of cost. Those things would be electricity for the buildings, our gas, the natural gas for heat, street lights. There's been an increase in that. I don't see that, but I've been informed that we're constantly have a little underage in the budget request, so that went up a little bit. Water consumption, because of using water in our wash bay facility now that we didn't have before, and there's the capital machinery request by the mechanics for a hydraulic press. So those are new items on the last page of the budget.
What is that? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. I was just gonna ask, are they in the new building at all?
Oh.
Halfway, partway, or you
We're-
might have a better idea?
Well, offices haven't been transitioned down there yet.
Okay.
The men are in there, we're operating out of the facility. So, we're in there, but we're not, let's
Got
say,
it. You might have an
like-
idea somehow in 6 months between now and July 1st as to how much electricity and a little bit of a handle. I know it's gonna fluctuate.
Correct.
We're in the middle of
Correct.
winter, so,
and maybe
Yeah.
Tony could see that
yeah.
and adjust the budget.
for a greater
if-
minds
if-
than me to
That's the
figure
plan,
out.
is to adjust the budget based on by the time the March meeting comes, we'll
Yeah.
have some, couple more months worth of history.
Right, these were,
It's 65,000 right now.
Yeah.
yeah, these are only reference numbers.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I have a question about the leak cleanup, so will
Yes.
will the entire 40,000 be reduced?
Yes, because we normally don't do that.
Okay, right. That's what I
That-
thought, it's
that-
like, oh,
that-
can you
that-
come do my leaves?
That was gonna
Okay.
be, the proposed
Okay.
mandate or draft of that was to have all towns clean up roadside leaves. And that would have created a nightmare for us because most of the homes, they do private leaf collection, they blow them off into their landscape or whatever. But they wanted us to literally take leaves off the gutter lines and collect them. Well, we'd have to go to a contractor for that service, and, because we don't own the equipment to do that. And so we'd have to contract that out. If we had to, the cost would be much, much higher if we had to buy equipment and
Sure.
then provide that service.
Great. I hope it goes away.
Well, tentatively it did.
Okay.
You told them to leave you alone.
Or, what is the hydraulic press? What is it for? How important is it?
If the staff has to, let's say, press a bearing off an axle or seat something.
You know all about that, Ellen, right?
Well,
Say no more.
rather than
Tranny now, Ellen?
You're supposed to sound interested.
bending steel that needs adjustment for alignment and things like that, that's what it's used for.
It helps a little.
Anything else on Public Works?
It's a guy thing.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, let's move on to waste management.
In waste management, there's a
One big
couple
increase.
nuances there. The general professional services, again, this is somewhat tied into some of those proposed regulations, but the biggest thing is management of the wastewater at Public Works. Now, we don't have sewers to discharge into, and there's tanks there, and we collect that water, and that water has to be processed. So it's basically like a septic tank truck comes, collects the water, it has to be properly disposed of or, filtered before it could go into a waste distribution system. And then the industrial stormwater permit policy, which regulates stormwater and surface water discharges at the transfer station and at Public Works, that's integrated into that one line item. We have shown these costs based on the water consumption and things like that. We don't know what it's going to be. So this is a proposed number. Until we're in the building for about a year, we won't know really what those numbers would accurately be.
And does that go out to bid at all?
We probably have, I don't know if there's something currently, there was a contractor called once because one of the tanks filled, because it's a smaller tank where the mechanics side of the building is, and we had to have that pumped out, so it depends on the amount of washing that's done. This time of year, it's very heavy.
Sure.
And when you get into a lot of the water is recycled there, but those tanks ultimately at some point have to be.
Right, I
siphoned.
mean, I can see you figuring out how many times per year it has to
Right.
be done, and then
Right.
that becomes what the contract is.
Right,
so.
correct, yeah.
The other thing is tipping fees. There's been an increase in hauling. The actual, one of the numbers actually went down a little bit in cost from what it was last year on the amount of tons, the tipping fee, but then the hauling cost for those transient and the containers to the waste facility, those increased. And That goes out to bid later in the year, so we won't have those numbers until that's bid. But currently, the numbers are higher than what it was last year.
And it's pretty impressive, the amount, the volume of kind of what goes through the transfer station. It's incredible.
Well, the thing of it is with single-stream recycling, the goal was to reduce the amount of trash that's processed out.
Right.
And increase in recycling. And we are seeing that. We're seeing the recycling numbers go up, and we're seeing the waste. We used to be in the area of 3,300 tons of waste, and now we're down to 2,900. So there's a decrease there.
But I really like your summary on your general description page where you show where all the different tonnages are for the different types of waste. I mean, it's really impressive, the amount.
Yeah, and again, the thing that influences that pretty much is the hauling costs.
Sure.
You know, other numbers are pretty much
Yeah.
fixed, you know, and so there's,
I mean, even 4 tons of paper shredded. I mean, that's a lot of paper.
and obviously there's other numbers that are not influenced too much. They're pretty much consistent with the general disposal of the recyclable materials. So that budget pretty much stays consistent outside of the highlighted areas.
Great
More
job.
questions on that?
Just a question on gas. Based on even the reduced rates, we're under contract. Is that why we don't
Correct.
see any reduction?
Yeah, so what we'll do is apply the contract to all the, once we review the budgets, we'll apply our gasoline contract and diesel contract to all of the various departments to check against the budget request. That's your question. Because we're under contract for gas and diesel.
I know what I'm saying. So really, the reduced costs that are down really lower now.
Right.
Is there a big differential for us? Or,
Yeah, like gasoline I think it's below $2 a gallon.
yeah,
And we were last year at close to 3, I think. I don't know if you remember.
yeah,
Yeah, it was
So,
pretty close. yeah.
It's a good $1 a gallon cheaper.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll see that. I mean, our department usage stays
Diesel,
pretty
same
much.
Yeah,
There's averages that I use when I set my number, and it goes back the current year, and I go back like 10 years to see what we've been spending, and that's where I set my numbers at, but it has to be adjusted across the board because of all the different departments.
Anything else? Okay, how about remediation? Obviously a large change in testing.
There's significant changes there, because over at the fire department, there were additional monitoring wells put in, and the paperwork associated with not only there, but any of our remedial work, manifesting that information and monitoring it. So the office manager, Cindy, put a kind of a thing together what the costs were based on the vendor's submittals, and that's where these numbers come from. Because there's quarterly reporting, and then there's the testing, and that lab work, the costs associated with that.
And how many years does this have to go on?
Until the lab work shows up that there's negative or low amounts of the content from the sampling that they do, and they say you can cease and desist and close the well, similar to what we did at Public Works.
So years.
We almost had it under control, and then boom, it's up again.
So is there an issue of kind of why this happened, and who is actually at fault here?
Yes, we don't think there's an issue, we think it's clear.
Okay.
But there is a pending legal matter,
Okay.
and we're supposed to go to mediation, and it keeps getting postponed and delayed, but we are pursuing it.
Okay.
And that
Thanks.
could impact this budget.
Sure.
So this was caused by the failure of that, separator or something?
The separation.
So-
right?
So would
Waste
this-
tank.
so this could be added to the lawsuit?
Correct,
We're required to do testing?
correct.
Okay.
Well, I'm not clear, some of it testing that we would have to do anyway?
Well, the manifesting
No, it's only
of some of
because
that
of the-
information would be in there, but that would be lesser of a representation, in other words, because of the amount that would be there, you're seeing an increase because of the reporting associated with that. But the wells themselves, it's pretty much the monitoring and the lab work associated with that shows the big increase in that line item.
The old spill that happened,
Those wells are done.
those are all done, so
We-
this
we
is
had
all related to that?
Pretty much so.
Okay.
Fire department.
Huh. Wow.
Okay, Warren, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks very much.
drive safe.
You too.
It's up to you, Warren.
Very good.
No pressure.
Okay, Fire Commission? $12:30.
Well,
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Why don't you just go through highlight any items in here that,
Okay. The first one we're looking at is 50310, part-time clerical. We're actually looking to go with a full-time clerical administrative assistant for the fire department. Basically, jobs really exploded and we could use somebody full-time. We deal with a number of insurance questions each week about where the hydrant is to the house because it affects their insurance rating. And there's usually 3 or 4 other questions that go along with this, so it takes time to put all the information together, and then we got to get back with them. They would process the bills, schedule inspections for the fire marshal, do filing for the fire chief, fire marshal. Just give you a heads up, last year, the fire marshal, we did 624 inspections. And all those had to be, the appointments had to be made, and then we had to file everything. Schedule the fire protection systems at the firehouse, the sprinklers, run the HVAC, be in contact with them, the security systems, the computer systems, all those things. They would also maintain Firehouse software, which is our main recording software for the fire department that we submit to the state. Entering in all the fire reports. Every year, every firefighter goes for a physical. All that has to get entered in. The person would also attend the meetings during the day that I couldn't make, like department head meetings and stuff, since they're at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's tough to take off from work and come here. That person would do it. Also, there's also other meetings during the day that person would be able to attend, or I can't make it. Also does hydrant permits during the day when in the springtime when we get into hydrant season. So there is a lot in that position that we could really use a full-time administrative assistant at the fire department to keep up with the amount of work. So that's something new.
so that would mean benefits also?
Yes.
So I don't know if you have questions on that. You want me to just keep going?
There is, I just, question,
Sure.
the fire marshal, 624?
624 inspections.
I mean, that's a lot more than that. It seems to me that's a bigger number than that. The number of inspections are up from previous years, previous
Yes.
fire marshals, substantially.
Substantially, yes.
Okay, so,
There's roughly 400 businesses in town. So what we did is, we came up with a plan. We're averaging about 3 to 4 inspections a day, and what we're doing is, the reason why there's 624 is not everybody passes on the first one, so usually there's a couple violations, then we make a reappointment, we go back and check them back out, get it cleared, and then the inspection is cleared. So Public Works takes a lot. I know he was at the at Beecher School a lot this summer for the construction. So there's a lot going on, and we're trying to keep up on everything, so.
But the major construction projects require, multiple repeated inspections.
But there are businesses that require to go back a few times, but all the, every place of business has been inspected in the town of Woodbridge in the last year.
Are they annual inspections for business?
A lot of them are, they're annual inspections and then they're biannual inspections. So like a liquor license would have to be renewed every single year, where maybe like a lawyer's office could go every other year. So it depends on the type of business, depends on.
Whether it's a public assembly or not.
Right, depends on whether it has to be once a year or once every 2 years. The schools have to be done once a year.
So the JCC, a place like that?
JCC would have to be done once a year.
Something like the schools and the JC, they're large
Daycares,
facilities.
healthcare facilities, assisted living facilities.
So that has put a bigger demand for clerical.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
The other one is data processing. We actually put in our budget, I think 16,000 last year. I know we knocked it down to 14. We're anticipating 18, and we're anticipating 18,000 for next year. That's Walker Systems. They come in once every 2 months, maintain our computer systems, make sure everything is running where it does. It runs all the updates, keeps the computers up and running, keeps the server up and running, and we also have on-call support, so if we have an issue, they can dial in and they can remote and fix the problem from their headquarters.
Is this the same group that supports the town's computer systems? And
No, I think
police?
Omni does it town.
Yeah.
And is it possible to get a better price if all those systems were through one vendor? Is that something that's been looked at all?
We talked about it a couple years ago and went through it, and we were actually.
We could certainly review that again. We think that's helpful.
I mean, is there something special that they do that another vendor could not do?
I couldn't honestly tell you right now.
They do the job well.
I understand, but I mean, the rest of the town depends on Omni, and I'm wondering if we would get a better price if we put everybody together.
Well, the cost, as we become more, the cost is just going up and up and up and up. So, I mean, we're spending a lot of money in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And can we get a better bang for the dollar if we
Right.
combine some of these
Right.
departments into one vendor? Does everybody save? Everybody, the town save, and the
Correct.
departments save, and everybody saves.
Right.
4,000 in 1 year is an increase. Are they doing something?
Well, we
You
looked for,
increase
no,
the
we looked
service?
for, we were actually looked for 16,000 last year, and we got cut down to 14, so we're looking for an additional 2 from where we were looking for last year.
So it's not that far off of our original projection.
But the
Right.
vendor would get $4,000 more.
No,
See,
the vendor would get $2,000 more.
Well, we're anticipating we're gonna spend close to 18,000 this year on
Okay.
IT support.
But this is not the first time a question of economies of scale on these big vendor systems has come up. I mean, we kind of tap dance around it all the time. I mean, I don't know if have we ever, are the schools on, is Beecher on the municipal system?
No, Beecher has staff.
They have
They have
the
their
staff that do it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's only the fire department?
No, and the police, aren't they on?
The police.
Or
Police
something
has-
different altogether?
No, the
No,
police,
police are on
they
this.
have an officer who does a lot of the work on staff, and then when they have issues that are beyond that officer's either ability or he needs extra assistance, then they use Omni typically. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Recurring maintenance machinery, we increased that 5,000. The fleet is getting older and we have more and more repairs on it, so that's where we're projecting it to be. The other big thing is rentals and equipment. We increased it by a few thousand because we're emptying the dumpster twice a week instead of once a week. So that went up. Communications and security 54260. That number we increased by $800 because we do the monitoring at the firehouse. That's all the door access systems and everything. We do the monitoring because we have the brains of it at the firehouse, and then Town Hall is on that system now, and Public Works, we just added to that system, so we have maintenance costs along with everything, so it's all included in that line, that's why it went up.
These are the keys, right?
These are the
The
key
S2
items.
system?
What, I'm sorry?
That's the S2 system?
The S2 system.
On the twice-a-week dumpster
Yep.
clearing, have you seen, does it make a difference? Do the animals get in less? Is there less trash around?
You would feel the complaint, so.
I haven't heard any complaints, but do
Okay.
you see a difference? Or
I didn't see a difference from the get-go, but
So,
Maybe that's where all of Warren's numbers are coming from now, you know, all of a sudden
Yeah.
he's got twice as much waste, to Sandy's point.
let's see, the other one is technical. We went from 35 to 37. We increased it by 2,000 just due to the amount. We're going to a lot more motor vehicle accidents over the last 2 years than we did before for some reason. So we're using a lot more supplies, drip pans, speedy dry, plug and bike and stuff like that. So that's why we increased that. The tire line is the next item. We always kept this at 2,500. Every 7 years, whether the truck's needed or not, we need to replace the tires on the apparatus per DOT for emergency vehicles for fire apparatus.
based on the date on the tire, not the
Right.
date they went into service.
So
So when we
what's-
buy new tires, we want to make sure we buy fresh tires.
Right, so a tire could be sitting in a warehouse for a year. We don't want to buy that tire. We want to buy a tire that's really made that month to put on the truck. What we do with our old tires is when we swap them out, we actually give them to Public Works so they can use them. There's nothing wrong with the tire, we just can't use it per DOT for emergency vehicles. Right.
And these
So-
are expensive tires. These are not,
Right, so I think we have one truck
You'll
or
go
a
to
truck and a
council.
half up this year, so what we'll do is we'll replace that, and the next year, the line is gonna be probably the same or a little bit more. It depends on when the tire comes up, when we have to replace them. So we're trying to maximize the use of the tires before we have to replace them.
Sean, did you mention the increase in training?
Yeah, we increased the training line by $2,000.
And is that attributed to additional requirements or more people or?
Additional requirements, we also have EMT refresher this year. We're doing ICS training, and there was one other hazmat training we had to do coming up this budget season in July. Hydrants, we have to increase the hydrant budget because the water company, when we went to start doing this budget, we always call the water company. They had an increase starting mid-December, and our payout, we pay out twice a year, and it works out to be $36,034 each payment. We own the fire hydrants in town, just like most municipalities own the hydrants. We're not paying for the hydrant, we're paying for access to use the water in the hydrant. So we don't pay for necessarily water when we're putting out a fire, but we have to pay for the ability to have use of the water that's in the water line. So it's kind of it's really bad, so.
it's not metered, but
Yeah, right.
we probably pay a premium for it.
Interesting nuance.
So these pool companies, these pool water companies, they go to the fire hydrant to get water, right?
Right.
How does that work?
So that's another tricky one because the water company's kind of upset with us, but we fight them every year because you have a pool in your yard in Woodbridge, right? Well, they came out with probably about 10 or 15 years ago with a metered hydrant. So there's certain locations where you can go and fill up water, and the water is metered through the hydrant, and the water company bills the pool water guy separately.
And the landscapers, by the way.
And the landscapers, the tree guys.
Like the one down on Litchfield Turnpike?
No, you got to go. I think the closest one is North Haven. So
Well, let me step back for a minute. We issue hydrant permits to landscapers and pool companies. The water company has delegated that responsibility to us, and they pay the water company for their usage.
They pay us a permit fee of I think $100 for the year, but they don't get billed for the amount of water. So they say, okay, well I take 2 loads a week. So they're basically on the honor system where they're getting charged for 2 loads by the water company a week for the water, but they can come and take 10 loads. But here's the downside, here's the catch side of it. If you own a pool in Woodbridge and you have to go to if they have to go to North Haven to go get water, they're gonna charge you a lot more than they would if they can get the water right in Woodbridge and deliver it to your house. So the water company is definitely getting beat on the whole system. But it's, on the flip side is, you're also benefiting the residents who have pools, so they're not, instead of paying maybe $300 a load, they'd be charging them $500 a load to get back, go all the way down to New Haven, get on the highway and go to North Haven.
Right,
and go
because
there.
the water company would rather have them go to the metered fill station, so they pay for every drop of water.
About 6 years
but
years
it's-
ago, they were looking to put a metered hydrant in down in Woodbridge, down on Research Drive or Lunar Drive. And the town kind of balked at it, and then they were looking to do one on, over by Clark Road, and that was a whole nother debacle. So they want to push us to put a metered hydrant in. It's just really up to the town if we want to put a metered hydrant in and where it should be.
What was the controversy about putting the meter in, if you know?
Because the trucks would all go there and fill up, so you're making noise.
Not only trucks for
traffic.
Woodbridge, trucks for anybody.
Right,
I
you got
see,
it.
I see.
And we get nothing out of that,
But
right?
how could they do that?
We get like
if
$100
you're the one who
per
issues
truck for the
if
year.
we issue the permit, how can any truck do it?
Well, you can issue the permit, but remember, not everybody knows, it depends on where you get water.
They can go to all different places?
Right.
Is that it? They can go, there are separate, so
Once
it's
it's
not all in one
metered.
place?
Once it's metered, you're getting billed by the gallon. So you're better off coming, off the record, you're better off coming to Woodbridge, getting the water, and then...
Sean,
Coming
you're
to
on the
Woodbridge, can't
record.
put it on.
You're not on the record.
Yeah.
So,
If you were the pool guy, you'd be coming to Woodbridge.
What about a camera?
Why did,
What's that?
What about a camera at the hydrants, so we know who
I
goes
can't help but feel that we're devolving into an issue here. You know, it's like, what?
It was actually a big thing about 2 years ago. The water company wanted to, we issued the permits and then they put a cease on everything and they didn't want to issue any more, they didn't want us to issue the permits or revoke the permits, and then we had to go back and forth, and we actually have, water commission here or something, or for RWA, a liaison, I think it was Mark Levine at the time. So we had to, I know Ed was working with it, and we actually ended up getting it dissolved. To have the idea to look into having a metered hydrant, which.
Sharon, why does the
really
water
know.
company let us issue a permit to use their hydrants? I don't get that.
Because we own the hydrant,
Oh.
By
okay.
we, you mean
the town of Woodbridge
Woodbridge.
owns the hydrant.
Oh, okay.
The water company wants to bill for the water.
I understand.
So
then-
if the hydrant breaks, it's on our dime to
Well, if the
to fix
hydrant
it.
breaks, like we had a hydrant break this year, and it cost us, I think, $5,000 down in the flats.
Okay.
So it comes out of that money, so that hydrant line changes. And if we have a bad winter and we have a couple payloaders or snowplows take out a few hydrants, we're on the hook for it. So to repair a hydrant is usually about $330 up to $6,000 or $7,000, depending on how far it breaks and what has to happen, whether they have to open the road up. Usually, what we have are breakaway stems. You have the hydrant sticking out of the ground, and then there's a rod that goes into the ground. Usually what happens if a motor vehicle accident or somebody hits the hydrant, usually the stem will break off, and it's just replacing the stem and putting the hydrant back on, and it's pretty simple. If they break it lower, then they have to open the road, dig it all up, and re-pipe
But
everything
those
up.
possibilities exist, having nothing to do with these pool companies or like.
Absolutely.
using the
Yeah, it
hydrant.
has nothing to do with the
That's
pool.
just
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah, but if a
Yep.
car hits a hydrant.
If the car hits the hydrant, the insurance covers it. If the
Assuming
car
they don't
hits-
take off.
Right.
That's right,
Right.
that's
Yeah,
right.
that's
If they
right.
take off or a snowplow hits it.
Right,
we-
right.
And
we've
whether
had
they
a
do
lot
or
of
they
them.
don't, we want our hydrants to work,
Oh, yeah.
so we're gonna
Yeah.
make sure that they work.
No,
Well,
but
if we, right, if we can trace the responsibility, we,
Right, we do, but
that's,
it's a public
that's
safety
good,
issue, you
but
have to have the hydrants, okay, okay.
Then the last thing is our capital machinery, capital outlay. Monitor replacement, which is in every year. Those are these items, which Susan got a lesson on tonight. When a call comes in, all firefighters have these, and what it does is it tells us the nature of the call, where it is, and it alerts us. So we replace these, we rotate them through all the guys, so we buy six of these a year. So by the time the last guy comes off, usually the unit's pretty shot, and we end up replacing it. The Amkis spreader and the Amkis cutters, it's one of each. It's what we use to cut cars apart. The two
the so-called
units,
jaws of life
right?
tools.
The two units we're looking to replace are roughly 12, 13 years old, and we need to replace them. They're starting to leak at the fittings and leak at the unit. So they're under, when you're using them, they're under stress. So we need to look to replace those this year. And that's what we have.
Any other questions? No? Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, is the Country Club of Woodbridge, which is tab 1192. I believe Mr. Genovese will take care of
I
this?
will, yeah.
Our award-winning Mr. Genovese?
So there are basically two issues in this budget. The first is on electricity. When we developed the budget last year, we had one meter, but it turns out there are 2 meters for the building.
Of course there are.
I just found it.
Of course there are.
So,
There's just two.
Just found it.
when we took over last year in the budget cycle, we discovered it too late in the process because we were transferring the books from Billy Casper to us. So that's the main reason for the electricity increase. The other has to do with maintenance of the building. And so what I thought I would do is hand out, there seems to be a lack of direction in terms of the building and what exactly is the status of the building in terms of staff. So I had them put together.
Who's they?
This is our maintenance department working with Casper and with some others who have familiarity with the building. Just sort of, what are some of the major items that we would need to address in the future, given the status quo operation of the facility? This does not mean that you would all of a sudden start using.
This artwork?
That's the furnace.
It's a rock show.
This is the furnace. There's some pictures of so the question was, what would we need to do just to maintain a status quo or to keep using the building as we currently use it, and not change it because currently we don't use the upstairs, we don't use the air conditioner, we don't really use the kitchen upstairs. This doesn't involve any of that. This is just to be able to use the pool and the heat, the building, and the roof. Essentially are the issues. And you can see there are some repairs coming up that could be significant. The boiler is a big one, for instance. Now it's 30 years old, there's a picture of it. And, it could last another year, another 2 years, another 3 years, or it could last another 2 months.
Well, again, I think the issue is you're putting a brand new boiler in a building
That's exactly
the building. The building's falling apart. It's rotting away.
That's exactly
So we're
the direction.
you're going to put a brand new boiler into a building that's just rotting away there.
Correct, or the roof. You're going to spend 30, 40 grand on patches.
David.
And, well, you need the patch on number 1 is just to patch those leaking sections that are in the pictures. That's not to replace the roof, which.
Did we do a roof, part of that roof?
Over the
at some
kitchen, I
point?
think.
We did over the kitchen.
Okay,
This is the shingled roof that's on the rest of the building.
okay.
And the engineering study that we did prior to buying the building, what was the I have it. What was the estimated cost to replace? I mean, it was like
The roof?
was $600,000 to
$600,000,
replace the roof.
Right.
To replace the roof.
Replace the roof,
Right.
$600,000. And that was how many years ago?
2010.
5 years ago.
They won't take it. So Tony,
So, it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen in that building over the next year, it's 18 months. And so I guess that's the sort of dilemma. And not wanting to throw good money after bad, like you said, put in for $50,000 for a boiler that might only last a new boiler for a building that, I don't know, this is sort of the dilemma with the building.
It seemed to me, based on some of the proposals that have been made, that I think that one of the things that have to be determined is what is going to happen with the facility and the property. And I think we're close enough, maybe to some decision be made on that, okay, that I would think it would be probably appropriate and prudent to wait that happens before we would invest any serious dollars into this facility.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, now the problem really happens is what happens if the boiler fails.
Exactly.
Okay, now you got a real problem.
That's right. That's right. That's
I
right.
mean, if that boiler fails,
You have some more stains on the ceilings.
well, again, I mean, the question here is, you know, again,
We
we,
have to plan for something, I think, just in case. It kind of depends on what happens
Well, I
with
have a question.
with what we're gonna do with the clubhouse,
I
and
think
everything
it-
else.
So none of this
Exactly right.
obviously even gets us to a beautiful building. These are
No.
just.
No, 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 no.
these are all Band-Aids.
This is like
But my question is this boiler the thing that heats the pool?
No,
No.
What does this boiler do?
it heats the interior of the building.
And the kitchens?
And the, right, and all the interior spaces, and you have to keep the heated to a certain level so that we can maintain a fire suppression system. We've just sort of looked into this, or you'd have to winterize the building in the winter.
Uh-huh.
And so that's a sort of a decision that you'd have to make.
So is there an independent boiler that heats the pool?
Yeah, there's a gas, a propane unit that's outside that heats the pool water.
Uh-huh. And how old's that boiler?
It's,
you know.
I don't know the age of it, but we did some work last year, a little bit of work last year and the
Okay,
year
so
before.
we're
That's
nursing
not
that
bad.
along. Okay.
The big thing with the pool is the interior
Right.
surface of the pool.
Uh-huh.
What is winterizing the building?
Means that you would have to
Drain all the water.
Yeah, drain all the water.
drain all the water.
Make it a vacant building essentially, and
Okay.
drain all the
Yeah.
water out of all the sprinklers.
Relocate the mice.
They'll just die.
Is that an insurance issue?
Yeah.
It would sort of be redesignated
We'd have to be
building.
a vacant,
as
sort of
like
a vacant building, and
Right.
we'd have to work out the heat that heats the clubhouse. I mean the pro shop part, because that's what sort of Billy Casper uses that on an ongoing basis.
And that boiler does heat
But the
that.
square foot of that is so small that
So
would
you-
be inexpensive
right.
to do something there.
Right, right.
But it's also, I guess we don't use, for the.
Well, there's a lot of what ifs
Yeah,
here, and there's a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy.
We're not gonna solve it tonight,
Right.
for sure.
I just wanted you to be
Yeah.
aware that
Yeah.
there are some things coming up, and as it relates to this budget, we don't really have any of those budgeted for. As you can see, I mean, you could certainly increase this maintenance budget. It's basically stays the same as last year now. In the current year, we've had problems with the two pumps on the pump station at Fountain Street. That's what the main expense is there, which is this provides water for the structure and for the golf course. You know, I'm not sure what's going to happen in the next year, but it seems like there are things unpredictably going wrong over there, and I just wanted you to be aware of some of the larger ones.
So it's really, at this point, we're covering this in contingency.
Right,
If something
correct,
happens, it's part of our
Yeah.
contingency.
That's correct. And based on the decision that may, like Andy said, maybe you can continue that philosophy at least for the foreseeable future.
Now, didn't we do just some pool repairs, if I recall? Before the.
We've done some repairs to the piping, and we've done some repairs to parts of the pool, but not the surface of the interior surface of the pool itself.
I think, didn't Anthony Taddy say he thought he could get through another summer?
Yeah,
So
he can.
these are all.
This is not for this,
these
so
are
that's why
all
it's, the numbers just
what ifs.
indicate the urgency of the possibility. But we can't, I guess the point is that we can't continue to keep a status quo or keep the same use of that facility, you know, indefinitely. At some point, there's got to be.
I think the lines have crossed on that building.
Right.
And at some point in time, a real decision has to be made.
Right.
There's no question about it.
Well, this is helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
All right. That wraps up another year of budget hearing.
What's the calendar for the rest of the budget process? What dates are we looking at?
When are you guys meeting to?
The Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen.
What do we have next?
We're early March. Make your recommendation.
Well, we have the joint meeting
On the 19th.
on the 19th,
That's what I was asking.
which is
I
not,
thought.
That's the regular.
That's the
That's our
regular.
that's your
regular
meeting, and then we're gonna have a special joint meeting to talk about some budget.
It's gonna be on the same day, though. It's gonna be on the 19th.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that
Right,
February
It's gonna be a
19th?
special
Is that what you're
Joint
saying?
town center,
Yeah, to talk about, what is that meeting?
Town Center,
You're coming to our
February-
meeting, February 19th.
February 19th.
Oh, I must have missed last weekend's.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I didn't see that. Okay.
February 19th, regular Board of Finance meeting.